What's up, webheads? Last week I uploaded my review of Spider-Man Brand New Day, except there was one small problem. I recorded it at 3:30 in the morning. I was running on caffeine, zero sleep, and pure Spider-Man hype. Looking back, I left out a ton of things I actually wanted to talk about. So, if you somehow survived that sleep-deprived ramble, thank you. Consider this the official version. More awake, more organized, and hopefully a lot more coherent. Because we need to talk about Spider-Man Brand New Day. This movie understands something fundamental about Peter Parker. Spider-Man is supposed to struggle. Not because he deserves it, but because that's always been the heart of the character. Peter Parker isn't defined by how often he wins. He's defined by how he keeps getting back up after life knocks him down. For years, the MCU version of Spider-Man always had a safety net. If Peter made a mistake, Tony Stark was there. If he needed a new suit, billion-dollar technology could print one in a matter of hours. Even when things got difficult, there was usually someone there to help carry the weight. But No Way Home changed all of that. Peter sacrificed everything to save the people he loved, erasing himself from everyone's memory in the process. And Brand New Day wastes absolutely no time showing us what that decision really cost. The bright, carefree high school adventures are gone. Now Peter is completely alone. He's grieving. He's exhausted. He's alone in the world while trying to protect a city that doesn't even know his name. And honestly, it's exactly where Spider-Man belongs. Not because I enjoy seeing Peter suffer, but because this is when the character shines the brightest. Today, I want to break down why Spider-Man Brand New Day isn't just one of my favorite MCU movies. I think it's one of the best Spider-Man stories we've gotten in years. The first thing that struck me about Brand New Day was just how different it feels. This isn't just a darker looking movie, it feels different. The color palette is colder. The cinematography is grittier. Even the pace feels more restrained. Everything about the presentation reflects Peter's emotional state. He's carrying the weight of No Way Home, and the movie wants you to feel that from the very first frame. One of my favorite touches happens before the movie even begins. During the Marvel Studios logo, we see clips from the Home trilogy, but Peter slowly fades away from every single one. It's such a simple visual, but it perfectly represents his new reality. The memories still exist. The life he used to have still happened. He's just been erased from it. It's a heartbreaking reminder that Peter truly sacrificed everything because, with great power, there must also come great responsibility. One thing I absolutely have to talk about is how much love this movie has for Spider-Man's comic history. Seriously, if you've spent years reading Spider-Man comics, this movie constantly rewards you. During the opening montage alone, we get recreations of iconic covers from Amazing Fantasy 15, Amazing Spider-Man 134, Amazing Spider-Man 345, Amazing Spider-Man 221, Spectacular Spider-Man 142, and Spider-Man Adventures number 2. They're not distracting references thrown in for applause. They're woven naturally into the movie, and you could tell that the filmmakers genuinely respect Spider-Man's history. Then there's one tiny detail that I haven't seen many people mention. During Peter's apartment sequence, one of his neighbors looks at him in the elevator and casually says, "We live on the same floor." The second I heard that line, my brain immediately went to Ursula Dickovich from Sam Raimi's Spider-Man 2. Whether it's an intentional homage or not, it feels like one. It's subtle. It's understated. And it's exactly the kind of deep-cut reference Spider-Man fans appreciate. Now let's talk about the action, because holy crap. Destin Daniel Cretton and his stunt team absolutely nailed Spider-Man's fight scenes. I loved the action in No Way Home, but Brand New Day takes things to another level by making every dodge, punch, and web swing feel tangible. Instead of relying on CGI to carry the choreography, the movie leans into practical stunt work and grounded martial arts. The result is action that has real impact. Every hit lands with weight, and Peter's movements feel fast, reactive, and improvisational, exactly how Spider-Man should fight. You can really feel Cretton's Shang-Chi influence here. Spider-Man has always been incredibly agile, but this movie finally treats that agility like a fighting style instead of just flashy acrobatics. Peter isn't simply flipping around his enemies. He's constantly adapting, using his environment, and chaining movements together in ways that feel both athletic and creative. And then there's the finale. The battle against the hand inside the DODC corrections facility is easily one of my favorite action sequences in any Spider-Man movie. Watching Peter be pushed to his limit while fighting wave after wave of highly trained ninjas was amazing. Every opponent forces him to improvise, and the choreography somehow keeps escalating without ever becoming repetitive. And the Web Blossom finishing move was icing on the cake. This scene has everything. It's fast, it's brutal, it's beautifully shot, and it proves Spider-Man doesn't need multiversal chaos to deliver unforgettable action. Sometimes all you need is one exhausted hero against impossible odds. Of course, it wouldn't be a Spider-Man movie without great web swinging, and Brand New Day absolutely delivers. I'd honestly rank it as my second favorite web swinging in the franchise, right behind TASM 2. What I love most is how frantic it feels. Peter isn't gracefully floating through New York. He's fighting momentum. He's whipping around corners, narrowly missing buildings, scrambling to recover when a swing doesn't go exactly as planned. Every movement feels slightly chaotic, and that's what makes it so exciting. There's also a fantastic homage to TASM 2 with the brief first-person POV swing that instantly reminded me of Andrew Garfield's film. As someone who thinks that movie still doesn't get enough love, that little tribute made me smile. Another thing I really appreciated was how much inspiration the filmmakers took from Insomniac's Spider-Man games. In interviews, the stunt team talked about bringing screenshots of traversal mechanics and combat finishers into meetings, challenging themselves to recreate those movements in live action. And honestly, you can tell. Peter transitions seamlessly from web swings into web zips. He bounces off walls. He uses streetlights, cars, and buildings as part of the choreography. Even some of the finishing moves feel like they were pulled straight out of the games. Tom Holland even said he replayed the games during production to capture that same rhythm in Peter's movement. That attention to detail really shows. Every fight feels fluid without ever becoming weightless. Every time Spider-Man jumped into combat, all I could think was triangle, circle. If you've played those games, you know exactly what I mean. Now, can we please talk about this suit? If you've seen my Spider-Man suit ranking video, you already know where I stand. I ranked this suit above the TASM 2 suit. And I honestly never thought I'd say that. Everything about it works. The darker red and blue, the raised black webbing, the larger expressive eyes, the textured fabric. It somehow feels both modern and classic at the same time. Most importantly, it actually looks like something Peter Parker made himself. That's something I really missed with the Stark suits. Now, before anyone comes after me, I actually really like the Stark suits a lot. They're great for the stories those movies were telling. But this suit feels personal. It's imperfect. The fabric bunches in places. You can make out the outline of Tom Holland's ears. And my favorite detail, when the lighting hits just right, you can actually see Tom's real eyes behind the lenses. It's such a small touch, but it constantly reminds you that there's a scared, exhausted New Yorker underneath that mask. Spider-Man isn't just a symbol. He's Peter Parker, and this suit never lets you forget that. One of my favorite parts of Brand New Day is the mutation storyline. When the trailers first hinted that Peter was changing, I think a lot of us immediately thought that Marvel was setting up Man-Spider. Instead, they did something much more interesting. They made Peter's powers a reflection of his emotional state. Early in the movie, the changes are subtle. He starts getting migraines. His wrists hurt. His body feels off. At first, it seems like he's simply exhausted from pushing himself too hard, but Evie, Peter's AI assistant, suggests that prolonged stress and emotional trauma may actually be accelerating his mutation. And honestly, that makes perfect sense. Peter has been carrying the weight of No Way Home completely alone. He has no family, no friends. No one even remembers he exists. He's been bottling everything up, pretending he's okay when he clearly isn't. Then comes the party. Peter secretly follows Ned, hoping, just for a moment, to see the people he loves. Instead, he watches MJ kiss someone else. That's the moment everything finally breaks. His mutation spirals out of control. Next thing we know, he passes out, wakes up in a cocoon, and figures out that he has organic webs. A fantastic callback to Sam Raimi's Spider-Man. His strength also increases dramatically, and whenever he loses control and the inner spider comes out, his eyes turn black as his more primal instincts begin taking over. It's weird. It's unsettling. The movie doesn't stop there. During Peter's fight with Scorpion, well, technically Jean Grey mind-hopping into Scorpion, we see just how dangerous this mutation can become. Peter completely loses control. Consumed by anger, he throws Scorpion into the path of a police cruiser, seriously injuring an officer in the process. That moment genuinely shocked me. Not because Peter makes mistakes, but because this is exactly the kind of mistake Peter would never forgive himself for. It immediately reminded me of No Way Home, when Peter nearly killed the Green Goblin with his own glider. The difference is that this time, nobody stops him. Peter has to face what he's done on his own, and that's terrifying. Naturally, Peter does what Peter Parker always does. He tries to solve the problem with science. He tracks down Bruce Banner, who's now teaching at ESU, and proposes creating a neural inhibitor that can suppress the mutation altogether. Banner warns him that trying to rewrite your own biology is dangerous. But Peter builds the device anyway. Because he isn't just afraid of the mutation. He's afraid of himself. That's what makes this storyline work so well. The mutation isn't really the problem. It's Peter's grief. It's his guilt. It's his loneliness. His inner spider is simply bringing those emotions to the surface. And by the end of the movie, Peter finally understands that. During the final battle, he's forced to make a choice. Keep suppressing a part of himself, or finally accept all of it. The spider and the man. He tears off the inhibitor, stops fighting himself, and chooses to embrace every part of who he is. I absolutely love that resolution. Because this was never a story about curing a mutation. It was about learning that healing doesn't come from denying who you are. It comes from accepting it. And I honestly think this gives Tom Holland some of the strongest material he's ever had as Spider-Man. As much as I love Peter's story, he wouldn't be nearly as compelling without the people around him. And Brand New Day has one of my favorite supporting casts in the MCU. Every character actually feels like they have a purpose. No one's there just to set up another movie. Everyone contributes to Peter's journey in some meaningful way. Let's start with the team-up I never knew I needed. Spider-Man and the Punisher. John Bernthal slipping back into Frank Castle feels completely effortless. He's every bit as intimidating as he was in Daredevil and the Punisher, but pairing him with Tom Holland creates such a fun contrast. Frank solves problems with bullets. Peter solves them with hope. Their completely different worldviews make every conversation entertaining because you never know if they're about to work together or argue. Usually both. One of my favorite scenes is after Frank accidentally shoots Peter. He carries him into the hospital, recreating one of the most iconic images from the Civil War comic. The second I saw that shot, I knew exactly what they were referencing. And honestly, seeing Peter lying in a pool of blood made my stomach drop. Obviously, I knew he wasn't going to die. But the movie sells the moment so well that, for a few seconds, I completely forgot that.
Now let's talk about Ned and MJ. It was really interesting to see them interact with Peter in this movie while having no idea who he actually was. The dramatic irony was wild, but it was also heartbreaking to watch. They've matured a lot now that they're at MIT, and MJ especially feels so much more independent and grounded. You can really see her growth and how she handles everything, but she still keeps that sharp protective energy we love. Despite the memory wipe, she and Ned still have that same great chemistry with Peter. The scene where the three of them just hang out and Peter and Ned build Legos is easily one of the best moments in the film, and it's amazing to see just how naturally their vibes are with them. But MJ's standout moment in the film for me was when she finally reads that note from No Way Home that Peter left behind. She isn't necessarily mad at Peter for it, but she's deeply upset and completely overwhelmed. Once she realizes the full truth of their past relationship, she gets so hurt that Peter chose to keep her in the dark. It feels like he stripped away her choice on how to live her own life, and taking so long to tell her himself really stings. I also love the decision to have Ned be the one to create the Spidey Tracker app. I think it's because there's still a big part of him that subconsciously wants to know who Spider-Man is, even though he doesn't know who Peter is. Yet. But honestly, that final scene at the bodega steals the show. When Peter and Ned do their signature handshake, it hits so hard. I genuinely believe that handshake is the exact moment Ned finally remembers who Peter is. It was really great getting to catch up with them and see him again in the movie.
Another character that completely surprised me was Detective Jean the Wolf. I honestly wasn't expecting her to become one of my favorite additions to the MCU, but Liza Colon-Zayas absolutely nails the role. So watching Peter work alongside a detective investigating street-level crime felt incredibly refreshing. To her, he's just another masked vigilante trying to do the right thing. She doesn't know Peter's identity. She doesn't treat Spider-Man like an Avenger. That dynamic gives the movie a completely different flavor than we've seen before. She becomes someone Peter can trust without either one of them needing to know everything about the other. And for longtime Spider-Man fans, bringing Jean DeWolf into the MCU opens up some really exciting possibilities. If Marvel decides to adapt elements of the death of Jean DeWolf or the Sin Eater storyline, they've already built the emotional foundation. That's exactly how long-term storytelling should work. Speaking of incredible additions, let's talk about Jean Grey. First of all, welcome to the MCU. Sadie Sink absolutely crushes this role. Introducing one of Marvel's most powerful mutants in a Spider-Man movie was definitely a bold choice. Honestly, I was a little skeptical when I first heard the rumors. Jean Grey is an Omega-level telepath. Spider-Man punches people. Those two things don't exactly sound compatible on paper. But the movie solves that problem in a really clever way. Instead of turning Jean into someone Peter has to overpower physically, she becomes someone he has to outthink emotionally. Her mind-hopping ability is terrifying because she doesn't just attack Peter's body. She attacks his grief, his guilt, his loneliness. Every fight feels psychological as much as physical. And that rooftop sequence? Oh my god. When Jean body hops into MJ, I genuinely believed MJ figured out Peter's identity. For a few seconds, I thought the spell from No Way Home was finally breaking. Then the movie pulls out the rug from under you. It was Jean the entire time. That twist completely got me. But nothing hits harder than Peter finally telling MJ how he feels. After everything he's lost, everything he's sacrificed, he finally tells her the truth. Only for MJ to look him in the eyes and tell him she doesn't love him. Not because she's being cruel, because she doesn't know him. That scene hurts. Not because the audience doubts their relationship, but because we remember everything. We watched these two fall in love over 3 movies. Peter remembers. We remember. MJ doesn't. And that's heartbreaking. Then, right before the credits, the movie gives us one tiny spark of hope. After Jean's massive psychic surge freezes the city, there's a subtle suggestion that something changed inside of MJ. On the rooftop, she's holding the Black Dahlia necklace Peter gave her. She doesn't fully remember Peter. Not yet. But she's remembering something. It's such a quiet ending to her character. No dramatic speech, no giant reveal, just the possibility that maybe, one day, she'll find her way back to him. Another character I was really happy to see was Bruce Banner. I actually love the idea of Bruce teaching at ESU. It just fits. He's one of the smartest people in the MCU, so seeing him mentoring students instead of sitting in a lab somewhere feels like a natural evolution for the character. But let's be honest, the real reason everyone was cheering? Savage Hulk is back. We've spent years with Smart Hulk, and while I've enjoyed aspects of that version, I've missed the uncontrollable monster. Seeing Banner's inhibitor broken during their fight scene was amazing. The fight between Hulk, Spider-Man, and Punisher is absolute chaos in the best possible way. Walls are collapsing. People are flying. Frank Castle is somehow still trying to shoot his way throughout the entire situation. It's ridiculous. It's loud. It's everything I wanted from a Hulk action scene. Now let's talk about the real villain, Bill Metzger, because this guy is terrifying. Not just because he's physically powerful, because he's believable. The MCU has had plenty of villains trying to destroy the universe. Metzger isn't interested in any of that. He's a bureaucrat, a government official, someone hiding behind policies, paperwork, and authority while quietly ruining people's lives. That's honestly scarier. Under the guise of protecting the public, he's secretly funding the Hand as a black ops task force while exploiting vulnerable teenagers and mutants for his own gain. Even worse, he's responsible for kidnapping Jean Grey's sister and experimenting on her in an attempt to recreate psychic abilities. Her sister dies because of those experiments, and that's what sends Jean down her path of revenge. The movie never excuses Jean's actions, but it makes you understand where her pain comes from. And that's what good villains do. They don't justify evil, they explain it. Casting Tremel Tillman was also an inspired choice. If you've seen Severance, you already know how unsettling he could be. He has this calm, polite, almost comforting way of speaking, which somehow makes him even more intimidating. Every conversation with Metzger in the movie feels like you're watching someone smile while quietly threatening your life. That's much more memorable than another villain screaming about taking over the world. At the beginning of this video, I said that Brand New Day understands something fundamental about Peter Parker. And after getting to rewatch the movie, I believe that more than ever. This isn't a movie about cool suits. It's not about ninjas. It's not about mutants. It's not even about Spider-Man. At its core, it's about Peter Parker. It's about loneliness, grief, responsibility, learning to live with trauma instead of pretending it doesn't exist. Every major storyline in this movie feeds back to that idea. The darker visuals reflect Peter's emotional state. The mutation is a physical manifestation of his grief. The homemade suit reminds us that there's still just a scared guy underneath the mask. Even the villains challenge Peter emotionally just as much as they do physically. That's what makes this movie feel so different from the previous MCU Spider-Man films. It strips away the technology. It strips away the Avengers. It strips away the safety net. And what's left is Peter Parker, an exhausted, overworked young man living in an apartment by himself, trying to do the right thing in a city that doesn't even know his name. That's Spider-Man. That's who he's always been. I also think this movie understands something that every great Spider-Man story eventually comes back to. Spider-Man isn't inspiring because he's the strongest superhero. He's inspiring because he keeps getting back up. No matter how many people forget him, no matter how much life takes away from him, no matter how badly he's hurting, he still puts the mask on. He still goes out there. He still chooses to help people. And that's why we've loved this character for more than 60 years. Is Brand New Day perfect? No. There are definitely a few pacing issues. Some story threads could have used a little bit more development. And I think a couple of supporting characters deserve more screen time. But honestly, none of those things stop me from loving this movie. Because every time Peter swung across New York, every time he got knocked down, every time he chose compassion over anger, I wasn't thinking about plot holes. I was thinking, yeah, that's Spider-Man. And that's probably the biggest compliment I can give this movie. If you've made it this far into the video, thank you so much for watching. I really want to know what you thought. Did you love Brand New Day as much as I did? Or did you walk away feeling differently? Let me know in the comments below because I genuinely love to hear your thoughts. And if you enjoyed this video, don't forget to leave a like, subscribe if you're new, and swing by next week for more Spider-Man content. Until next time, stay spectacular, webheads.